You've likely heard someone in your life regret ever investing in an RSP. In fact, it's a story I hear all the time in my practice. They're frustrated, even furious, that as they step into retirement, they're now faced with a tax hit on their withdrawals. They wish they had invested everything in a TFSA from the start, talking about how much better off they'd be with those tax-free savings. But is the TFSA really the better choice? I'm Joe Macek, cross-border investment advisor and portfolio manager with IA Private Wealth and IA Private Wealth USA, and today we're going to dive into a direct comparison between the TFSA and the RSP to find out which one might be the better choice. And the results I've found are pretty cool to say the least. So let's break it down. So if you had to just pick either an RSP or a TFSA to invest in for your entire lifetime, how would it work out? For our example, we're going to use two investors, both single, Carol and Michael. Carol is all in on RSPs, swearing by them as the ultimate savings tool. Michael, on the other hand, thinks RSPs are terrible, and he's going to only invest in his TFSA. But before we get too far into the weeds with Carol and Michael, I'm going to start off by saying that we're going to make some pretty bold assumptions for this comparison. And I really want to forewarn you because it's not going to be perfect. We're going to be leaving out inflation and any possible changes in future tax brackets. That said, I really just want to have fun with this video and do a very dramatic comparison. We're also going to ignore certain personal aspects like your current income level. For example, when you're younger and you're just starting out, your income might be lower, and at this stage, you might lean towards saving in a TFSA since your tax rate is likely lower and you might not feel that there's a huge benefit to contributing to your RSP as you won't get the maximum tax deductions. However, as you advance in your career and your income rises, contributing to an RSP can become more and more advantageous because you'll be in a higher tax bracket offering more significant tax savings. With all of that said, this video might not make perfect sense in the future, depending on what changes happen, and it might stir up some criticism in the comments, and that's perfectly okay. Feel free to leave constructive feedback in the comments. I do read them all, and not only do they help me create better content for you, they also help me improve as an advisor. So thank you all once again in advance for your insights. Okay, so moving on to Carol and Michael. Both are 30 years old and earning $120,000 per year, and they are both each going to save about $7,000 annually after tax. Both Carol and Michael earning what they do will make the maximum contributions to CPP throughout their working years, meaning that they will both qualify for the maximum amount of CPP in retirement. Additionally, since they have no plans of moving away from Canada and they're going to live in Canada for 40 years, they're also going to qualify for the maximum OAS benefits. These amounts add up to $16,375.20 for CPP and $8,560.08 for OAS, a total of $24,935.28 of income for both Carol and Michael. Now, if we're going to get an equal comparison with the RSP and TFSA, we need to choose an adequate marginal tax rate. Why? Well, because RSP contributions are tax deductible and TFSA contributions aren't, it's important that we at least try to get as close to an apples to apples comparison after tax as possible. So on my website, joemacek.com, you can use the tools and calculators tab to explore RSP tax savings for $120,000 worth of income across different provinces. Generally, a $10,000 RSP contribution at this income level gives you a tax refund ranging from 35% in Nunavut to 46.71% in Quebec. And for this example, we'll assume both Carol and Michael live in New Brunswick, and we're going to use New Brunswick's marginal tax rate of 42%. And I think this rate would be fairly representative of what you'd find in most provinces across Canada. Now, when using the RSP tax savings calculator on my website, you can input both your income and the amount that you want to contribute to your RSP. This will detail an amount that you should receive back on your taxes, and for this example, we'll enter an income of $120,000 for New Brunswick and a contribution of $11,739. Why $11,739? Well, by contributing that amount at this income level in New Brunswick, you will see that you will receive a $7,000 after-tax equivalent to the penny, which matches the after-tax value of a current TFSA contribution. This will help make the comparison as equal as possible between the two scenarios. So just to recap, Carol will contribute $11,739 $2,739 to her RRSP, costing her $7,000 after tax, while Michael will contribute $7,000 after tax directly to his TFSA. Both will keep their contributions fixed and unchanged for the next 35 years until both Carol and Michael are both 65. Next, we'll determine an average rate of return for both Carol and Michael. For simplicity, we'll assume a conservative annual rate of return of 7% over their lifetime of 35 years. This figure is a general estimate, and I just use it to be simple, but I think it provides a pretty reasonable benchmark for what most people might target. Using this rate will help us compare how their RSP and their TFSA contributions could grow over time. And so let's start with Carol's contributions. And for this, to make it simple, we will use the Fidelity Canada Investment Calculator to determine how much Carol will have in her RSP in 35 years in tomorrow's or nominal dollars. She will invest $11,739 annually into her RSP over the next 35 years with no initial investment and an annual return of 7%. No tax rate will be applied as it grows tax deferred, and there will also be no inflation rate. When Carol is 65, she will have accumulated $1,611,023 in her RSP. Michael, using the same calculator and the same assumptions, but this time we're going to change the amount to $7,000 instead of $11,000, will have accumulated $960,658. Speaking of numbers, over 90% of my watch time is generated by viewers who are not subscribed. So please consider liking and subscribing, as it really helps my videos get out to reach many more incredible viewers like you. Thanks again in advance for your support. At first glance, Carol's numbers seem significantly higher. After 35 years, her RSP has accumulated to over $1.6 million, while Michael's TFSA has only grown to about $960,000. This would be around 59 to 60% of Carol's total. This difference may make Carol's RSP look like the clear winner at first, but let's look a little deeper into the way the income will flow out of the account. Now, if you'll remember, both Carol and Michael will receive the full CPP and OAS benefits in retirement. That's $16,375.20 from CPP and $8,560.08 from OAS, giving them each a total of $24,935.28 per year. We'll also assume that Carol withdraws 5% annually from her RSP in retirement. For Michael, at first we're going to aim to match the same after-tax income from his TFSA withdrawals to see which strategy works out better on an amount basis. However, since Michael's total balance is smaller in his TFSA due to Carol's extra RSP tax savings, this after-tax amount will likely be higher than a 5% withdrawal rate on Michael's balance. However, we will get a clear picture by doing Michael's withdrawal rate at 5% later in the video. So Carol's 5% withdrawal from her over $1.6 million RSP results in $80,551.51. Adding in her $24,935.28 in CPP and OAS brings her total income to $105,486.43. When we run this amount through our tax calculator for New Brunswick, her net income after tax is $77,933. However, since her income exceeds the OAS threshold of $90,997, there will be an OAS clawback of approximately $2,786, reducing her final net income to $75,147. Next, let's calculate Michael's after-tax amount. With an average tax rate of 26.12% in New Brunswick, his equivalent withdrawal amount would be $80,551.51 times 0.7388, which equals $59,511.45. It's important to note that this amount reflects a withdrawal rate of approximately 6.19%, which is slightly higher than the 5% rate used for Carol. This means the comparison isn't entirely fair, but again, we will address this discrepancy later in the video in more detail. So for Michael, we have a non-taxable TFSA withdrawal amount of $59,511.45 plus a taxable amount of $24,935.28 from CPP and OAS. In New Brunswick, this combination would result in an after-tax income of $23,105 based on an average tax rate of approximately 7.34%, paying significantly less income tax than Carol. And it's also worth noting that even if Michael were to withdraw the entire amount from his TFSA, none of it would affect the OAS clawback. This means that Michael keeps 100% of his OAS benefits regardless of how much he takes out, But for this example, his net after-tax income would be $82,616.45, which is about $7,469 more than Carol's income. However, as we said before, we want to help ensure a fair comparison, and we should use a 5% withdrawal rate for Michael given his smaller balance. So his 5% withdrawal rate will be $48,032, which is lower than Carol's due to the difference in their account sizes. When we add this after-tax withdrawal amount to the after-tax CPP and OAS income of $23,105, Michael's total after-tax income comes to $71,137.90, which amounts to $4,009.10 less than Carol's total, reflecting the impact of having that smaller balance on his retirement income. So while Michael pays less tax later and doesn't have to worry about clawback, he also has a lower balance to draw from. Here are a few more nuances to this comparison that you might not have thought about. Michael, due to his very low taxable income on paper, might be eligible for the guaranteed income supplement, which could further boost his income. Additionally, if Michael ever needed to pull extra funds for any unexpected expenses out of his TFSA, he could withdraw from his TFSA tax-free, offering him the flexibility and peace of mind that Carol doesn't have with her RRSP. That said, Carol ended up with a better after-tax outcome, even with the OAS clawback with an even 5% withdrawal rate. This advantage likely stems from her larger RRSP balance compounding over time. If Carol invests in the RRSP for a longer period, her after-tax income could potentially improve even further. So who is the big winner between the RRSP and the TFSA? Well, at first glance, it looks like Carol's RRSP seems to have the edge with a larger accumulated balance compared to Michael's. However, the real story unfolds when we look at the after-tax income. Michael's TFSA withdrawals are entirely tax-free, allowing him to keep 100% of his OAS benefits. Despite Carol's larger balance, Michael's TFSA could prove to be the better choice for maximizing after-tax income and offering more flexibility in retirement. Michael's ability to withdraw funds tax-free and avoid the OAS clawback seems to give him a distinct advantage. However, Carol could play around with the sequence of her withdrawals, and she has the ability to push off her CPP and OAS benefits, and this would allow her to utilize her RRSPs before receiving those benefits, and it might further increase her overall income in her retirement. As you've probably found out by now, there are many things to consider when determining which route is best when it comes to examining the RRSP or TFSA for investing. Looking to the future, it's hard to imagine a situation where someone with a $300,000 TFSA income, for example, still qualifies for GIS, a benefit designed for income earners most in need in Canada. As TFSAs grow and their impact on retirement incomes become more substantial, it seems likely that the government will probably adjust the OAS clawback rules along with the GIS qualification rules to include TFSA income. So I wouldn't expect that to last. As for choosing a clear winner between the RRSP and the TFSA, well, it really depends on your personal goals and preferences. Each option has its strengths, but ultimately working with a portfolio manager or investment advisor can help you plan towards the best strategy for your specific situation, helping to ensure you're maximizing the benefits of either an RRSP or a TFSA based on your unique financial goals. Do you want to see what happens to your CPP and OAS benefits when a spouse dies? Or maybe you just want to see my latest upload? Well, I've got everything all queued up and ready for you. Click here for more amazing financial insights. I'll be waiting. We'll see you soon.